بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين أما بعد. Today inshallah continuing our lessons on elevating our sisters, a series on the greatest women in Islam. Today, inshallah, we'll look at the life and the benefits, life and times of Fatimah bint Muhammad bin Abdullah radiyallahu ta'ala anha, who is the daughter of the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And we mentioned in our series so far, we've been narrating and discussing the lives of the greatest women. And so when we look at the hadith that talk about the greatest women, we find, as we mentioned before, the four. And we mentioned their biographies with Lillahi alhamd. And today, inshallah, we will begin with the last of the four before moving on to others. And so Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam, when he mentioned the best of women, he mentioned the ones that we've covered so far. So for example, we've done Maryam, we've covered Asiya, Khadija last week, and this week, inshallah, Fatima. May Allah be pleased with all of them. To begin, inshallah, we'll have to mention that there's a lot of things narrated about Fatima radiyallahu ta'ala anha, and some of these things that are narrated about her are authentic, whereas others are not. And this is primarily because, as we know, the Rafidah, the Shia, they have and hold Fatima in high esteem. And due to that, they have fabricated and they have added and embellished and sometimes outright fabricated, invented stories and narrations of virtues about her which are not established in the Quran and Sunnah. And so for those reasons, there is much that has been said, but inshallah, as always, we stick to that which is authentic, found in the Quran and Sunnah, and narrated by our ulama, our scholars of Ahl Sunnah who are reliable. So inshallah, if we miss out on anything, then it's due to the limited time, and not because of inability, but rather the limits in our time, and also because sometimes some of the narrations that are reported, they need to be verified and obviously looked into further. But inshallah, we'll begin first with her name. So her name is Fatimah bint Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and that is she is none other than the daughter of Muhammad bin Abdullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And so Fatimah bint Muhammad. And this is important that her status is partly due to the fact that she is the daughter of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. She has the greatest father. She has the greatest lineage of the Arab. She's connected to Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And again, Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam held her in such high esteem that he would be angered and bothered with that which bothered her, and would be pleased with that which pleased her. So of course her status is great. And so her virtue partly is attached to that, and also due to her own goodness that she had with her, as we'll come to later. So, as we know, she's the daughter of Muhammad bin Abdullah, Nabiyuna sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Now Fatima, where does her name derive from? What does the name Fatima mean? The ulama, they mentioned, the scholars of Arabic language, Fatima comes from the Arabic word Fatama. And Fatama means to cut off something. يعني قطع, to cut off something. Fatama, fa, ta, mim. And so this is a trilateral root. Ibn Manzur, rahimahullah, in Lisan Arab, he says, Fatama, it means, from its meanings, is to wean or to cut off something. To cut off something. But it's used in the phrase, Fatama sabi, which means to wean a child. Literally cut them off from nursing. Means from breastfeeding. So then he says Fatima is from the names of the women, and a woman is called or named Fatima or Fitama or Fatima. All of them have the similar meanings. Fatima, as we know. Another one, a variation, Fitama, and the last one, Fatima. And he says all of these are connected in their meanings. So literally, Fatima then, and this is found in his Kitab Lisan Arab. He says then, after he mentions this point, so literally, what we take from this, the name Fatima means a woman who weans a child from breastfeeding. A woman who weans a child from nursing, right? From breastfeeding. Literally, that's what it means. And wallahu a'lam, why Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam named her Fatimah. However, it has been said that perhaps it's taken as a good meaning and a good omen, right? Good omens, tafa'ul, which is allowed in Islam, that she will be one who grows up, gets married, has a child, and later on weans the child. And we know this is what happened. She had many children. Tayyib, that's her name. That's in terms of the meaning and her name. And so many people then later on, due to her name, and there was more than one Fatima, just to mention that point, there's more than one Sahabiya who was named Fatima. And for those reasons, this name was popular. And so that's the literal meaning. And we learn now that she also has nicknames. And this is important too, because the nicknames, some of them we find to be authentic, and others we don't have proof for. And that's why the ulama, they narrate all of this. And it's important to understand again that when we talk about certain things, we need to verify them. So sometimes it's been mentioned, and the ulama often mention these points, that something's been mentioned, but just because it's mentioned doesn't mean that it was always correct. So we'll stick to two of the names that are common, nicknames, commonly associated with her name. And one of them, the most popular, is Az-Zahra. So often we hear that she's referred to as Fatima Az-Zahra. And this term is very common in the books of Sir, the books of biographies and history. They mention this as part of her nicknames, radiyallahu ta'ala anha. And so, first one, examine where did this name come from and what does it mean? And is it correct to refer to her as Zahra? So the ulama, they mentioned this. For example, it was mentioned by Imam al-Zahabi, and before him Hafid ibn Hibban rahimahullah, and afterwards Ibn Kathir and the likes. So what seems to be correct, that the Salaf al-Salih never used this term. The Salaf al-Salih didn't use this term to describe her, nor was it common from them, as we'll come to mention now. But the latter scholars, Shaykh Salih al-Usaymi, he mentions, may I preserve him, that it became popular from the scholars from the 4th century downwards. So examples, Ibn Hibban, Imam al-Zahabi, Ibn Kathir and others. Where they take the name from is from the description of the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So the term Az-Zahra is means or is in relation to skin complexion, to the complexion. And this is found in the hadith of Anas, may Allah be pleased with him, reported in Bukhari and Muslim, Al-Bukhari and Muslim. قال أنس رضي الله تعالى عنه كان رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم أزهر اللون. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he used to have a fair complexion. Azhar al-lawn. And so from there, the ulama said Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam was described as being Azhar, and therefore her Fatima was Zahra. Right? She likewise had a similar skin complexion. Hafid ibn Hajar in Fath al-Bari says, Azhar, it means white complexion with a tinge of red. White with a tinge of red, or white mixed with red. And so from there, it's the meaning Az-Zahra is one who is fair in complexion, white, and usually it means bright, means the whiteness is very clear and white. As some ulama mentioned, it's shining, it's like a brilliant kind of light skin, but with some red in there. So it's a nice complexion. And Shaykh Bakr Abu Zayd rahimahullah, as I mentioned, the scholars of the Salaf didn't use this terminology, so it became popular later on. Shaykh Bakr Abu Zayd rahimahullah, he says, I could not find the history for this nickname from the scholars of Ahl Sunnah. Means the scholars of Ahl Sunnah didn't mention this. Means the Salaf, earlier scholars, those who had such a nickname, we can't find anyone who was called this, or they were using this, but it became popular later. And this is found in his book Mu'jam al-Mahani and Manahi al-Lafdiyya, page 401. Coming to the ruling, can we call Fatima Az-Zahra? Shaykh Salih al-Fawzan and Shaykh Salih al-Usaymi, may Allah preserve both of them, they both mention that this is a permissible nickname to call her by, provided that someone does not hold any of the Rafidi, means the beliefs of Shia in relation to her. What does that mean? We'll mention in a minute. So it's permissible to call her Fatima Az-Zahra, provided that we do not hold any certain beliefs that the Shia hold in relation to Fatima, which are not proven. For example, the Shia, they say, the Rafida, that Fatima is a woman, she doesn't menstruate. They say Fatima doesn't menstruate. So part of the meaning of Zahra is one who doesn't menstruate at all. And this is not established at all in the Quran and Sunnah. Rather, it's found in a fabricated hadith, which Shaykh Al-Albani, he declares as fabricated mawdu' in his silsila ahadith al-da'ifa, hadith number 428. So it's important we don't believe these kind of things which are not reported, that Fatima doesn't menstruate. This is a fabricated narration, and the Shia believe this, and they believe other things in relation to Fatima which are not established. As a side benefit, Shaykh Salih al-Luhaydan, he says that this point, even if we were to take this hadith, had it been authentic, the Shaykh says it's not a virtue to begin with. Not menstruating is not even a virtue to begin with. For there are other women who do not menstruate. As we know in the Quran, Allah says, وَاللَّائِ لَمْ يَحِضْنَ, and the women who do not menstruate. So it's not established that Fatima radiallahu ta'ala anha didn't menstruate, and that's something we should, as Ahl Sunnah, we don't believe, and we shouldn't believe. Rather, the nickname as Zahra is to do with her skin complexion, because she was a very nice, fair complexion with a tinge of red, and this is what scholars say permissible to call her that, even though it's not reported. It's not reported, but it's still permissible to use. A second nickname, which I'll mention for now, is Al-Batul. Al-Batul. And so this name, it's an interesting name because it is connected to, again, similar kind of praise. However, we don't have a proof for it, as far as I know. But the ulama have mentioned this. So the ulama, they mention it as a reason, for a reason. And it's a nickname that's given for both Fatima and Maryam. So we mentioned Maryam alayhi salam before. Both Fatima and Maryam both have that name. So what does the word Al-Batul mean? Batul means one who is, literally, it means one who doesn't get married and is a virgin, stays away from marriage. But the ulama, they say that Maryam was called, as Imam Nawawi says, for example, Maryam alayhi salam was called Al-Batul because ترك النكاح انقطاعا. She left off all types of marriage, and she never got married. انقطاعا إلى عبادة, because she preferred worship. And we know that from the biography we took from her, about her. As for Fatima, then he says that also Fatima was called Al-Batul because she cut herself off, i.e. she distinguished herself عن نساء زمانهما, from the women of her time, and both of their times, both Maryam and Fatima. They distinguished themselves from all of the women due to their religion and their virtue and their desire for the akhirah. Hafiz ibn Hajar in Fath al-Bari agrees, and he says that it was said that Fatima was called Al-Batul because she distinguished herself, i.e. she made herself distinct from all other women due to her honor and her status. And others said that after Ali passed away, her husband, others mentioned that she only got married to Ali, so that's why. But again, we do know that she passed before Ali. So there is a debate there. But what seems to be correct, that we called her Al-Batul because she's distinct in her qualities and her virtues. In any case, those are two nicknames. Fatimah bint Muhammad, she was called Al-Zahra, and Al-Batul. Al-Batul. Radiyallahu ta'ala anha. Now coming to her birth, Imam al-Zahabi mentions, rahimahullah, that Fatima was born قبل مبعثي بقليل. She was born before the Prophet ﷺ was dispatched as a prophet by just a little bit. I mean, she was born just a little before the time period Nabi ﷺ was dispatched as a prophet. And we know that her mother is none other than Khadija, who we spoke about last week, radiyallahu ta'ala anha, and she's the youngest of all the daughters of the Messenger ﷺ. She's the youngest. And what's unique is that she was born at this time, and it's mentioned by Ibn Hajar that Fatima was born قبل الإسراء, before the Isra wal Mi'raj, before the Isra, بلا خلاف, without any difference of opinion. Because we know that the Rasul ﷺ made the Isra after the death of Khadija. So بلا شك it was before that. The ulama then, they mention about her biography that there are things mentioned about her family life, about her virtue, and about her religion. And so inshallah we will mention that which has been narrated. The first of which is to do with her marriage. And we covered this point before in our discussions and our reading of the poem, the 100 lines of poetry of Imam Ibn Abi Izz al-Hanafi rahimahullah. And we mentioned that Fatima was married to Ali radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. And so we need to come now to a discussion about her marriage. When did it occur? So the first thing we need to mention, Imam al-Zahabi says in Sir A'lam al-Nubala, that he says that Ibn Abdul Barr said, Ibn Abdul Barr, he mentions, that she married Ali and then they moved in together بعد وقعة الأحد, after the battle of Uhud. That they got married and Ali moved in, means they دخل بها, means they Ali married and they moved in together as husband and wife after the battle of Uhud. Now let's get into a discussion about how she got married. And this is important because this is mentioned by the ulama as well, about how she got married and what age she was when she got married. But to make it simple, we want to narrate what the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentions about her and who wanted to marry her before Ali married her. There is a narration in Nasa'i, Sunan al-Nasa'i, I'll pull it up over here, where it talks about her marriage. Burayda, may Allah be pleased with him, narrates that Abu Bakr and Umar both proposed to Fatima radiyallahu ta'ala anha initially. That Abu Bakr and Umar both proposed to Fatima initially. And then Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam told them that she's too young. Means she's too young for them. And then after that Ali came radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, proposed to her, and he sallallahu alayhi wasallam said that married her to him. It's found in Nasa'i's authentic hadith. So we read the hadith. خطب أبو بكر وعمر رضي الله تعالى عنهما فاطمة فقال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم إنها صغيرة فخطبها علي فزوجها منه. And when they came, and why did they come to marry Fatima? Because they wanted to marry into the household of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. As we know, the great virtue, be part of the lineage of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And there's many hadith about this. It's important. Ahlul Bayt, the concept is part of the Aqidah, is from our Aqidah, Ahlul Sunnah likewise. We believe in Ahlul Bayt, the virtues that they have, and their status, and our respect for them. Of course, within the hudud al-Sharia. So, this was the encouragement. But the Rasul said, إِنَّهَا صَغِيرًا. She's too young. So, what the question is, how old was she? But Imam Nasa'i, he says in his chapter, in the hadith book, Bab, تزوجت المرأة مثلها في السن. A woman marrying someone who is similar in age. So how old was Fatima when she got married? Mullah Ali Qari, he says, he mentioned in the commentary of this hadith, that when they came to propose to her, she was about 14 years old. She's about 14 years old. And then when she turned 15, Ali came to propose to her and Rasulullah accepted. So she got married when she was 15 years old. And Ali was a little bit older than her. Ibn Abdul Barr says in his kitab Al-Istiqama that when she got married, Fatima radiyallahu ta'ala anha, she was 15 years old and about 15 wa nisfan, and about 15 years old and 5.5 months. And Ali was 21 years old and 5 months. Fatima was 15 years old and 5.5 months. And Ali was 21 years old and 5 months. And this was also mentioned by most of the scholars afterwards. And Mizzi, Ibn Kathir, Ibn Athir, غيرهم. So here's the benefit we take from her marriage. The Rasul ﷺ married her to someone like age. And this is what some of the ulama they mentioned in the books of fiqh about marriage. So someone get married to someone older or younger. Some of the ulama they discussed this. And there's no harm in getting married to someone older than you or someone younger. Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam got married to Aisha and he's older. And we know that Jabir bin Abdullah radiallahu anhuma, he got married to his wife when she was older. And he was younger. Rasulullah was younger than also Khadija. But they mentioned that, some of the ulama, that finding the age, which there is some kind of, either if they're the same age or close to age, it is more munasib. It's more appropriate in that they can find commonality. What Allah scholar says, as long as there is compatibility, then the age is not something which can affect it. And this is an important benefit we can derive as a side benefit. A side benefit. That's what Rasulullah meant when he said, إِنَّهَا صَغِيرَةٌ. This is what he intended. Not that she was too young to get married, but because he was looking for someone who was close to the age. Abu Hassan al-Sindi says in his Hashiyah, explanation of Sunnah Nasa'i, in this, فَفِيهِ, we get a benefit here. And this is important, these benefits, because they can help us to understand Islam as a comprehensive system, giving us answers and options for everything. And these are kind of things that we benefit from. In today's time, we say these type of things. Marrying someone close to your age, and all of these different points, you find them in the hadith. And likewise, someone get married older, we have a dalil. And someone get married, we have dalil. All of these we have adillah. And this shows us the sufficiency of the Quran and Sunnah. Our brothers and sisters, the Quran and Sunnah, in there we have everything that we need. Walillahi alhamd. Here, Abu Hassan al-Sindi, he says, in the hadith is a benefit. ففيه أن الموافقة في السن أو مقاربة مرعية لكونها أقرب إلى المؤلفة. He says that the fact that having same age, means having spouses or couples with the same age or close in age, and considering that is something which brings near or closer compatibility and affinity and harmony. So it's more conducive to harmony. Otherwise, we did mention that there is no harm in it. If someone wants to know also the fuller details of how he got married to her, because there's more details of how Ali proposed, there are narrations, but due to the time, inshallah, we will move forward because of the time. But there is more details someone can refer to, and we can share them later, how Ali came to Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam to get married. Of course, then he gave his mahar. How much did he give as a mahar? As a benefit, this hadith in Nasa'i is hadith number 3221, for those who want to record it. 3221. What was the mahar? Rasulullah, when Ali proposed, Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam told Ali to give her something. And Ali, he didn't have anything. And this is because Ali, we know, he just came from the battle of Uhud. He doesn't have much wealth. And so Rasulullah said, where is your shield, which you just fought with in the battle? And so he gave that. He said, give that as a mahar. And we said in our lessons in the 100 lines of poetry that the worth of the shield was very less. It's very less. It was very inexpensive. And you can refer back to that for more. So Ali later on, he went to work, as he comes to Hadith Bukhari. He hired himself out, selling some kind of sweet-smelling grass to prepare some money in order to bring forth enough money for the walima, etc. And of course, the narration, as we said, there's more details, but due to the time, we will suffice with that which we have mentioned. So there's a benefit we already take from that. طيب, the ulama then mentioned, after she got married to Ali radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, she gave birth to a number of children. And this is close to the connection of her name, being Fatimah. As we said, that literally one who weans the children, or a child. She gave birth to many children. And this is something which the ulama all narrate. And so we mentioned them now, inshallah. A side benefit as well, that she is the cousin of Ali radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. So from Imam Dhahabi says, Ibn Abdul says, rahimahullah, she gave birth to Al-Hassan, then Al-Hussein, then Muhsin, then Kulthum, and Zainab. So those are her children. Al-Hassan, Hussein, as we know, the two leaders of the youth of the people of the youth of Jannah. The two leaders from the youth of Ahl Jannah. And then Muhsin Kulthum and Zainab. And so this is what has been mentioned. As a mother, we know she raised them, and she herself was a person who had high status in deen. And so her influence, herself, how she was with her father, helped her to impress those great qualities onto her children. So Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam praised highly Hassan and Hussein, as we know. So much praise for them. And again, the obligation upon us, Ahl Sunnah and the Muslims, to love them and to honor them and to not speak badly about them. Her qualities and her good deeds and her good qualities obviously made her a great mother who then passed on these great qualities to her children. And we'll mention some of those qualities soon. We do know about the birth of Al-Hassan and Hussein that initially Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi initially we know that when they were giving birth, Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he came and he taught us a certain sunnah. For example, of shaving the hair of the child and giving that amount of hair in sadaqah for the boys, in charity, etc. came by way of Fatima's hadith. And so that's a benefit in terms of her own status, that because through her become these ahadith. Now Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, how did he deal with Fatima? How did he deal with her? And how did he treat her? And what qualities did she have and that she took from him? So we'll mention the first thing. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he loved Fatima so much that whatever harmed her, it would harm him. And this shows you Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he honored her and respected her as both his daughter and as a follower, a believer in him. She was a companion. So as a father to his daughter, he looked after her and cared for her and ensured that whatever harmed her, he would protect her from it, and whatever annoyed her, that he would be there for her. And this is again the great status of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam as a father. And it comes to Hadith Sahih Muslim. Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, "Innama Fatimatu bad'atun minni yu'dhini ma adaha." That Fatima is part of me. Whatever harms her, harms me. And so this is the virtues of Fatima radiyallahu ta'ala anha. And we know the backstory for this narration, which was when it came that Ali radiyallahu ta'ala anhu was considering seeking and marrying the daughter of Abu Jahl. And this bothered Fatima, to which also then bothered Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and to which Ali then left off the idea, because Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was bothered by it, and whatever bothers Fatima bothers him. And the explanation of this narration has come before. We've explained this in some of our posts before, so we can refer back to that. But what I want to highlight to just this from this narration is how much Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam honored her and respected her. That he looked out for her, and that he was bothered that would bother her. And this is because how much love he had for her and respect. And Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam also showed much respect to Fatima, because Fatima, from her virtues, was that she was an adherent follower of Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Means she followed his sunnah. She followed his sunnah carefully. And this is a very good, important point, as we'll get to. But what we want to highlight is that Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam loved her, and this is how a father should be for to his daughter. Looking after her, respecting and honoring her, and how the daughter should be with her father. Because in Islam, the relationship with the father and the daughter is one of great status and honor. As we know, this entire series we're talking about here is honoring and elevating the sisters. So look how Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam honored his daughter, Fatima radiyallahu ta'ala anha. Comes in Sunnah Abi Dawud, Sahih Sunnah Abi Dawud, hadith number 5217. Aisha radiyallahu ta'ala anha, she said, and again, Aisha, her own status we know. قالت ما رأيت أحدا كان أشبه سمتا وهديا ودلا وقال الحسن حديثا وكلاما ولم يذكر الحسن السمت. So some riwayat is slightly different wording. However, it says أشبه سمتا وهديا ودلا وفي الرواية كلا حديثا وكلاما برسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم من فاطمة كرمها الله وجهها. Fatima, Aisha radiyallahu ta'ala anha said, I never saw anyone more resembling in respect to the mannerisms, disposition, and behavior, also in respect to speech and the way that they talked, than Fatima. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala honor her status. And then she explained more. So the first benefit, the virtue of Fatima radiallahu anha, she was one who followed Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam's sunnah. She followed his sunnah alayhi salatu wasalam. It's a great encouragement to all of the sisters. And this is because we know Ahl Sunnah, it's not just for the men. The Sunnah is not something which the men only compete to adhere and to practice. Sunnah is for the women as well. And just as we find the Sahaba, from the Sahaba, those who are meticulous in following the Sunnah, like Ibn Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhum, amongst others. We know Ibn Umar, we always hear about Ibn Umar, his meticulousness in the way he adhered to the Sunnah of the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Here we have Fatima emulating her father. لَقَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ فِي رَسُولِ اللَّهِ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ. Verily you find the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam the best of examples. So she emulated him, so much so it comes in the another version of the hadith. This is important, another version. This is, I believe, in Bukhari. This one is Sulaymaan Abi Dawood. There's another in Bukhari where it mentions that she used to walk the way that he walked. Alayhi salatu wasalam. She used to walk the way that he walked. As Aisha said another time, أقبلت فاطمة تمشي كأن مشيتها مشي النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. She came one day walking, and her gait, the way that she walked, was exactly the same and resembling the gait and the walking pattern of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So this is encouragement to all of the sisters to follow Sunnah Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, as he encouraged us and commanded us before he passed away. عليكم بسنتي وسنة الخلفاء الراشدين المهديين من بعدي. Rasulullah told us, upon you is my Sunnah and the Sunnah of the rightly guided caliphs. So continuing the narration in Sunnah Abi Dawood, Aisha says that whenever Fatima came to visit, he sallallahu alaihi wasallam would stand up to welcome her and took her by the hand, kissed her, and made her sit where he was sitting. And when he went to visit her, she got up and welcomed him the same way. Took his by the hand, kissed him, and made him sit. So this is a beautiful relationship. Hadith Sahih, as Shaykh Albani said, beautiful relationship between Fatima radiallahu anha and her father. And what we take is that this is how the parents, how daughters should be to their fathers, with honor and respect, and how fathers should deal with their daughters, with love and mercy and compassion. And this is a sunnah, this kind of treatment. It's a very important thing, because in today's time, obviously, our situation and our life has changed, and so these kind of things now have become very rare. You find them to be very rare amongst the people, and so we take a benefit from that. How we should aspire to be with our children, and how we should also, especially for the sisters, to try to emulate Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam in everything. And this is one of the reasons, as we said before, why she was called Al-Batul. And so this is a benefit, because she separated herself from others due to her virtue. Other virtues also, obviously, we do know. And the Rasulullah mentions she's from Ahlul Jannah. She's from Ahlul Jannah. We also know, as we said before, the Rasulullah said she's part of me. We also see Rasulullah showing respect to her and honoring her. And we also see that, just as how she resembled Rasulullah, later on her own children, Hassan and Hussein, resembling Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And so what we take from this hadith, explanation of it, that she followed him in the way that she had sakina waqar, her composure. So here she copied him in the way that she carried herself. She also copied him in the way that she walked. She also copied him in her good mannerisms. The Nabi sallallahu had the best manners. And obviously Rasulullah, she resembled him, and also, as we said, in complexion and humbleness and humility. And that shows you that she was one who had religious. This is part of the reason why Rasulullah mentioned she was from Ahlul Jannah. These qualities that many of us may not be familiar with. As a benefit, continuing from this, when it comes to Fatima also, radiallahu ta'ala anha, is that we know other benefits to do with her own personhood as a person. And I want to finish with these points and take some lessons we can derive for our modern era. other benefits we can derive to do with her patience, her sabr, her patience, in the ways that she dealt with life. And we know, as we said earlier, Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he married Fatimah to Ali did not have very much. And so therefore they lived a relatively difficult life. And this is important because sometimes we forget this. Her status, her livelihood, Ali being the breadwinner, he didn't have very much. However, Fatima was patient. And so Fatima, she used to do all of the domestic duties at home. And we're going to mention the hadith. She used to bake the bread. She used to mill, literally, grind the grains. She used to do all of the housework. And of course, without a servant to aid her, it was difficult upon her. And so there comes in the hadith in Bukhari, hadith number 3103, Ali says, radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, Fatima complained about what she suffered from the hand mill and from grinding when she got the news. So she used to do all this work, so her hands became rough from grinding the mill and using the hand mill to grind the grains. So when the news came about some slave girls who were recently brought to the city from a battle, Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam had, she went to ask him for a maid to help her out in housework. And Aisha said, Ali said that but she could not find him. And she told Aisha that she came to see him and to tell Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam when he comes that she came by. When the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam came, Aisha informed her of that, and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam came to our house when we were gone to bed. And on seeing him, we were about to get up, but he said, keep at your places. And I felt the coolness of the Prophet ﷺ's chest, coolness of the Prophet ﷺ's feet on my chest. Then he said, shall I tell you a thing? So Rasul came and he sat near them. And he said, shall I tell you something which is better than what you asked me? أَلَا أَدُلُّكُمَا عَلَى خَيْرٍ مِمَّا سَأَلْتُمَاهُ. Shall I tell you something better than what you asked me for? And of course, they said, of course, Ya Rasulullah. And Rasul said, when you go to bed, say, فَكَبَّرَ اللَّهُ أَرْبَعًا وَثَلَاثِينَ. Say Allahu Akbar 34 times. وَأَحْمَدَ ثَلَاثًا وَثَلَاثِينَ. And say Alhamdulillah 33 times. وَسَبِّحَ ثَلَاثًا وَثَلَاثِينَ. And say Subhanallah 33 times. فَإِنَّ ذَلِكَ خَيْرٌ لَكُمَا مِمَّا سَأَلْتُمَاهُ. For that, I just told you, is better than anything, whatever you may ask me, you have come to ask me about. Means, this is better for you than the servant you came to ask me. Here, we take a great benefit. And the benefit we take, number one, the patience of Fatima as a wife when living in difficult circumstances. As we know, life can become difficult. Husband works, he tries to earn, and may not always be able to provide as much as he's able, or provide as much as is desired. However, she, with these difficult circumstances, and the poverty that she was in, she was patient. And Rasulullah taught her that patience. You could have given her, alayhi salatu wasalam, you could have given her a servant. However, he taught her that which is better. And she was patient. And she's one who preferred the deen over the dunya. She preferred the deen over the dunya. And so here's a reminder for the wives, for all of our sisters who are married, the patience is so important. As a wife, that going through these challenges, because at the end of the day, if you look, we may say that she is the best of the people of Jannah. She's from the best of the women. She's from the women of Ahl Jannah. Yet her circumstances were like this. And just last week we looked at Khadija, radiallahu ta'ala, her own mother, and how she came from wealth. However, the affair at the end of the day is in the hand of Allah. So Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam training his daughter to be patient. It doesn't mean then that she was in a state where she was desperate and she had nothing. However, because of his tarbiyah, Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam's training and teaching her about patience, she was patient even amongst the difficulties. And I'll mention an example next, the difficulties that she went through. So what is the benefit we take from this hadith? Number one is the patience. It's important always for a wife to be patient. فَإِنَّ مَا الْعُسْرِ يُسْرًا. Very with difficulty comes ease. But secondly, a special benefit that can help all the sisters and the brothers for their next day. You see, in today's world, we always need that strength for the next day. Hafid ibn Hajar, he mentions in the explanation of this hadith a great benefit. And it's especially pertinent because of the subject regarding strength. Having strength. Hafid ibn Hajar says some of the ulama derive from this. ويستفاد من قوله ألا أدلكما على خير مما سألتماه Shall I not show you something better than that which you both have asked me about? He says, some of the ulama have derived from this that dhikrullah, being consistent and persistent in the remembrance of Allah, gives you strength, strength, which will increase you in your deeds, in your chores and your tasks, with more strength than if you had a servant. Or that it will make easy for you the affairs that you are trying to complete. SubhanAllah, that's one of the benefits some ulama derive from this. However, Muhajjir says, what's more apparent to me, which he prefers, is that Rasulullah, when they came to asking for a servant, which is dunya, he directed them to the dhikr, which is the akhirah. As if he was telling them, prefer the akhirah over the dunya, because the akhirah khayrun wa baqa. As Allah says, the akhirah is more persistent and longer lasting. SubhanAllah. Either way, we benefit from this. Making these adhkar at night gives you strength. So all of the people who listen to this hadith reminds us, at night, if you do these adhkar, it could strengthen you for the next day. How many times do we hear today, we got to get ready for the next day? So what do we do for the next day? Some of us may plan our tasks. Some of us may write down a task list, chores. Some of us may prepare our lunch and our clothing for the next day. But we hear dhikrullah, Allah will aid you. SubhanAllah, it's a great benefit. But also Fatimah radiallahu ta'ala anha, what's unique also about her, alongside her patience and her worship and focus on worship, is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala favored her. And the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he taught her these points, and this is also why he sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, some miracles came by way of him for her. And I'll mention one of them here, which is connected to Fatimah radiallahu ta'ala anha. So this benefit is a hadith reported in Bayhaqi in his Sunan, in his Dala'il al-Nabuwah. It is also narrated in other places. And I believe Shaykh Al-Albani, he graded this narration as being sahih. This narration, he said it's isnad, there is no harm in it. La ba'sa bihi, there's no harm. It's a fair narration. And this narration is interesting because it shows you, again, it's all connected to her qualities, but also, again, miracle. It's a miracle. Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he granted for her. So I'll read the full narration because the full narration helps explain it. Imam Bayhaqi narrates that Imran Hussein, he says, actually I believe the hadith is actually reported, afwan, it's not in the Sahihah, it's authenticated by Shaykh Al-Albani in Jilbab al-Mar'atu Muslima, afwan. Hadith, he says, Isnadun la ba'sa bihi fi shawahid. It's no problem with this chains due to its shawahid, its corroborating reports. Now this narration, also the narration, Shaykh Al-Albani, he brings it, he also mentions it in his Da'ifa. So Wallahu A'lam, looks like the Shaykh might have changed his opinion on it, but nonetheless he mentions it because it has shawahid. So we'll narrate the story because it's connected to what we mentioned earlier. He says, Imran Hussein says, radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, one day we were with Rasulullah when Fatimah entered, and when she came, she stood next to him, and Rasulullah when he saw her, قَدْ ذَهَبَ الدَّمُّ مِنْ وَجْهَهَا, that he saw min wajhiha, he saw that the blood had left her face, and that her complexion, her normal, excellent complexion, was removed from her body. Means she was looking less than how she used to look. Means looking pale. And so Rasulullah, when he saw this, he realized it was min shiddati ju', from severe hunger. So what happened was, then Rasulullah came near to her. He told her to come near, and he placed his hand on her chest, near the place where she keeps her necklace, and he kept his hands open, and he made dua, "Oh Allah, provide and satisfy her from her hunger. Oh Allah, lift from her the difficulty. Oh Allah, lift from her the difficulty." And after that, her face became normal, her complexion, and the hunger left from her, until Imran said, I met her and I asked her what had happened, and she said, "Ma ji'tu ba'd dhalik." I never became hungry after this again. Subhanallah. And even though, as we said, that Shaykh Al-Bani, he does mention the hadith also in the Da'ifa, so it could be that Shaykh took it back. The highlight I wish to take just from it was the fact that she was in this state of hunger and patience. Subhanallah. This is the point I want to highlight. And it's connected to what we mentioned earlier, that Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam is training her to be patient. And so Fatimah radiallahu ta'ala is a great example of patience. A mother, a daughter, a worshipper of patience, great manners, deen, and one who, because of all of these qualities, Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam said she's from the women of the people of Jannah. How did she pass away? We know she came to Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam before his death, and he came. He told her to come near. He whispered something in her ear, to which made her cry. Means he informed her that she will be passing away soon. Then he whispered something else into her ear, informing her that that she will be the first one to meet him after her. And so here we know from this hadith, the ulama, they mentioned that Fatima, she was the first. She passed 6 months. 6 months after Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and she was from the first of the people from his household, from those who are alive, to meet him, alayhi salatu wassalam. And Fatima, the ulama, they mention that she passed away, and she was in the time of Khilafah of Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala anhu, and she was then buried, and just as Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, in the same time period and frame. And this again is another miracle from Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So that which we can derive from her life, as though we mentioned much, is all of the qualities that she contained in her. And we asked and remind the brothers and the sisters to aspire to be like these great role models of patience, of hard work, of emulating the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, going through challenges and difficulties. And of course, there's much more that I could have mentioned, but due to the time, I cannot mention everything. And all of this is by way of mention, and all of this is by way of reminder, because at the end of the day, there's much more to say than we have time. But what I also want to take from this, because we're talking modern issues and modern time period, the sisters can emulate Fatima radiallahu ta'ala anha as a role model in the way that she practiced her religion, in the way that she strived in her deen. Despite being the daughter of the Prophet ﷺ and already having this great status, she continued upon her religion. And that's when the Nabi ﷺ taught us through her example that nobody can inherit the status of anyone's through their lineage alone. And that's when the Nabi ﷺ, he used her as an example, that if Fatimah bint Muhammad radiallahu ta'ala anha were to steal anything, then I would have had her hand. And he said this alayhi salatu to show us that no one is preceded, no one is put forward by their lineage and their great status, but rather by the good deeds that they do. And this is important for us, a reminder that each one of us, we have that opportunity, and by Allah's permission we can achieve it. And we always should remind ourselves of that, and we should always be eager to be upon the khair, inshallah. If anyone has any questions now, inshallah we'll take it, brothers or sisters. There's a question here. It says, I've heard a speaker say the Prophet ﷺ was upset when Fatima wore a gold chain that Ali brought for her until she gave it away in charity. Is that true? There is a narration about some of the Sahaba or Sahabiyat having or some of the wives of the Prophet ﷺ wearing gold, and the Nabi ﷺ encouraged them to wear silver. And others mention specifically Aisha, and Rasulullah ﷺ told her I will show you something better, which is to wear silver. So there are narrations like this. As for Fatima specifically, then I would have to research this, inshallah. I don't have it on the top of my mind, but we will look into it, inshallah, to find that out. طيب, another question, why are her other children not as well known as Hassan and Hussein? And this is because Al-Hassan and Hussein, the Nabi ﷺ, he gave them great status. And he mentioned them, and a lot of hadith about them. For example, Hussein being martyred, Rasulullah ﷺ prophesied this. and Al-Hassan being one who will be doing sulh between two great armies, as he did between Muawiyah and Ali radiallahu anhuma, and Ali plays with both of them. So the narrations come, and obviously because they're the older children, the Rasul lived with them, and of course that which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala favored them in virtue, that's why they have more, they're no more than the others, because the others, they came afterwards. So that's part of it. Of course, Ali also had later on other children from another, after Fatima's death, he also had other children from another wife. But as to why Hassan and Hussein, because the Rasul attached so much word to them in narrations of virtue, and of course, ذَلِكَ فَضْلُ اللَّهِ يُؤْتِيهِ مَن يَشَاءُ. So this is partly the reason why we hear more about Hassan and Hussein, may Allah please with them, more than Muhsin and Kulthum and Zainab, even though we know that they are his children. And that's they're her children. Naam. Anyone else have any other questions? Any other questions? Anyone have any questions? From their brother's side or... The questioner says, why was slavery allowed back before? Of course, this is a topic which it's itself, subhanAllah, a huge discussion, right, worthy for an entire course. So questions like this, obviously, we cannot explain in a few minutes. So inshallah, we will, one day, if Allah gives us ability, we will discuss those kind of issues in great detail. But that kind of question is very big, right? It's a very big question. Now, questioner says, Jazakallahu khair wa iyaakum. What is the topic for the next lesson? And inshallah, going forward, we will continue with the examples of the righteous and the women. So now that we've covered the four greatest, we'll move forward now towards others. And what we'll do now is we'll pick different women from the time periods afterwards who have certain exemplary qualities and benefits and stories which we can take a lesson from. So for example, we'll do most likely next week, I'm not sure yet now, but we will cover Aisha radiallahu anha for sure. But I'm also thinking about doing a few others in between, or sometimes because some of the stories are not very long. For example, also the wife of Ibrahim, Sarah. May Allah have mercy upon her. And what shall also do her to benefit her life. And we'll cover different lives, Sulaym, for example, as well, radiallahu anha, and others. So most likely, we'll be leaning towards Aisha radiallahu anha. However, we may add others, but we're going to cover topics in relation then to qualities and women who have certain stories which we can benefit in today's world for the sisters and the brothers, all authentic ones, inshallah. So most likely Aisha will be the one, inshallah ta'ala. If anyone has any last questions before we finish. As for the story about the chain, then it is reported by Sunan Abi Dawud and Nasa'i and others And this hadith is being graded authentic by Imam Al-Albani. So the first question was asking about that story. This is a story narrated by Thawban, Mawla Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and Shaykh Al-Albani authenticated it in Adab al-Zifaf and also As-Sahiha. That when Rasul saw her with a gold chain, and he said, Fatima, would you be pleased? And the people would say to Fatima, Muhammad, fi yadiha silsilatu min nar, that she has with her on her hand or her neck chain made of fire. And she mentioned that she got it from Ali and then she sold it in the market. Now, there's that narration. So there you go. And it's also mentioned by others. Tayyib, inshallah. The one last question is here. It says, were the stories about the wife of Adam? Were there stories about the wife of Adam? About Hawa, there is some narrations about. There is. And so perhaps, inshallah, what we'll do, as I mentioned, continuing our series, because now we did the 4 greatest women, we want to then focus on the qualities and great stories and benefits from other lives of the great women before. So some of them we'll put them together. So Hawa, for example, may Allah have mercy upon us, she has benefits in her life. So maybe we can take something from that and add it to another story from another one. And so inshallah, we will not go in any specific order now. Now we're going to focus on the people who are great. So for example, Aisha, we will do her biography because we know much, but we also want to learn more. And others we're not so familiar with, and others we focus on qualities. Right, inshallah, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy for us and allow us to benefit from this. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.